It's about to get real nasty. Gentlemen.
Yo, what it do, everybody? It's your man Dre, aka Dre on Wheels. This is episode 47 of the 11:30 podcast, Talk Pro Wrestling. What's goody? How everybody doing out there, man? Appreciate you guys joining me back here for another episode. You dig? Good morning, good night, good afternoon to all my listeners, all my subscribers who watching on YouTube, all across the world, man. For real, I'm glad you guys joining me back here for Talk Pro Wrestling this week on this Friday. You guys, man, shout out to all my listeners in the UK, Germany, Canada, man, and in the States, man. For real, it's going to be dope, man. I just mentioned Canada. I got a dope guest you guys lined up this week from Quebec, Canada. Yes, you guys. His name is Squirty Leflow, you guys. He's from Quebec, Canada. He's a music composer, you guys. He's a music producer who make dope music, man. Not only that, you guys, lately he's been getting into some wrestling theme songs, you guys. We all familiar with Jim Johnston. Well, he looks up to Jim Johnston as we all did as a kid. Well, this week on the 11:30 podcast, Talk Pro Wrestling, I got Squirty Leflow that's going to stop by here to chat some wrestling, man, and chat, you know, how he's doing and, you know, making wrestling theme songs, man. That's going to be fun, man, here on the 11:30 podcast, Talk Pro Wrestling. But before we get into that, you guys, I want to shout out my guest who was on last week, Sir Wilkins, man. Shout out to the whole Jobber Tears podcast and the whole Jobber Tears network. Appreciate you, my guy, for joining me here on the 11:30 podcast, Talk Pro Wrestling. But you guys, man, hey, we about to get into the show. Squirty Leflow, all the way from Canada, man. Before that, shout out to Canada, man. But yeah, what's going on, Squirty Leflow?
Hey, how you doing, man? Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you for joining me, man. How's your day going?
Oh, not bad. I was just working my day job for a little while there, and now I'm doing my music producer time now. So yeah.
Okay, cool, man. That sounds fun, man. That sounds really fun. This episode is gonna be cool. Usually I have like independent wrestlers or ring announcers or just guys who are just big wrestling fans. I really haven't had someone sort of like a music producer who made wrestling theme songs, and whoever, you know, of course, listen to this podcast, of course, is wrestling. A big fan of the theme song of wrestling, you know, of course, that's like the, you know, what defines the character or the guy or the girl when they comes out to the ring. So this is going to be really cool. But before we get into all of the good stuff, Squirty Leflow, for my listeners and viewers who are watching, you might introduce them and telling everybody something about you.
Yeah, so I've been involved in music altogether for 20 years now. I started playing music when I was 16. I started playing music with guitar, actually. That was my first instrument. Then moved on to drums and bass, so anything that's you know, band related. When I grew up, I was listening to a lot of hard rock and metal and like punk music, that kind of stuff. That's how I learned how to play music. And after that, I went to film school, where I found, like, you know, different sensibilities in music, but a lot of it applied for like composing and all that stuff. And then after that, I just realized, like, I want to continue into the audio / music medium. So I basically went from there, and I went to sound engineering school in Montreal in my early 20s. And that was the start of really, like, me taking the audio and music side of things seriously. And then in my 20s, I used to tour with bands. I worked with video game composers. I worked for post-production studios for television. I used to edit music for children's TV shows. So yeah, in my 20s, I worked in the industry in Montreal. After that, I kind of had a falling out with music. Music's a hard thing, right? So it's like I actually quit music twice in my life, and that second time that I was done with Montreal, that's the second time I quit music because it wasn't really working out. And now I moved back home. Then a couple of years passed. I got like normal jobs, and then 3 years ago, I decided to restart the whole music thing. I guess it kept calling me. It wouldn't leave me alone. So I had to jump into it, and that's when I started the Squirty Leflow music producer thing 3 years ago. At first, I was producing a lot of rap, hip hop, R&B, pop. I was working with artists, and that was so as well. And then 6 months ago, 6, 7 months ago, actually, I started the wrestling entrance themes, and that's been the thing that stuck with me so far. So it's like it took me 20 years to get to a point where I can actually get some moderate amount of success in the music that I'm making. So I think I found my little niche. So that's why I'm sticking with this entrance theme thing for now. And it was actually my childhood dream. Like when I was a kid, I've been watching wrestling since I'm 5 years old. And Jim Johnston was a huge part of me growing up with the music thing. I think Jim Johnston is the best who ever did. Jim Johnston is the one that invented the genre of entrance themes in general. So he's the one that started it. And yeah, like in the Attitude Era, like late 90s, early 2000s, like I feel like some of the best themes ever were made in that time. And yeah, he was just like a huge part of me growing up. And now I'm like, it's come full circle for me, and now I'm involved in it. And I try to bring back some of that essence that I feel is kind of like not so much there nowadays, as much, not for all the themes, but a lot of themes, like I feel like they're lacking in those like specificities for, sorry, specifics for characters, like like the mood of the characters, the general like enhancement of the personality of the characters. That's what the music is there for.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if you can like hear a song and have it be interchangeable within your mind, that like, oh, that song could fit with somebody else, and like that's no good, right? So for that's what I'm trying to like really bring back, is that Jim Johnston sort of like hyper specific type of music that you hear it and right away you know that it's it's that person, that character. There's not enough Stone Colds nowadays. Like the Stone Cold theme with the glass breaking, like it's the ultimate theme song, and like we need to bring back like that kind of like specific vibe.
Yeah, man, you are solely right, man. Who throughout the Attitude Era, who and Jim Johnston, man, of course, he just every track in them days, man, was every theme song was just fire. You remember at that time, at least in the Attitude Era, what was your favorite theme song?
Well, like I said, the Stone Cold one is like, it's pretty much everybody's favorite theme song.
Yeah, the glass breaks.
Yeah, the glass break is truly a genius thing. I think it's the most genius thing that's ever been in any theme. That and the Undertaker's gong.
Yeah,
like those 2 or 3 seconds in the beginning of the song are the most important part of the theme.
Yes.
Because you want to like grab their attention right away.
Mm-hmm.
And Jim Johnston like realized that early on, and like the glass break was like a sort of like a social conditioning thing, where it's like you hear it and then you jump out of your seat. It was like it was like so there's that. And I'm really a fan of like, let's say like the lesser talked about ones, like the Brood had a really cool theme in the Attitude Era.
Everybody really loved the Brood.
I was thinking I was like going through a playlist on Spotify actually of like Attitude Era themes. Mm-hmm. And the Goldust one is really underrated. The Goldust theme, remember that one?
Okay. Yeah.
It's anyways, anybody who's listening, go check out the Goldust theme. It used to be one of my favorite themes, but I didn't even really know back then. But looking back on it now, it's like it's truly a genius theme. But yeah, like those are the Rock had a cool one too.
Yeah.
DX was awesome. It's like it's all those like first few seconds that matter,
Exactly.
When like Triple H had his, like, I called it the Electric Pigeon theme. Remember that one? Like when he was with China, he had like that first theme, and then he got the Motorhead theme with like the big guitar strum at the beginning. But both themes were awesome because they both had like that first impression thing going. So,
exactly. That was one thing about Jim Johnston. He did like that first 2 seconds, you knew immediately what superstar, if a person, who was the casual viewer who maybe came to a show or who was just watching, but if your favorite superstar just came out that first 2 seconds, you immediately know who it was. And The Rock, that was for me like that. Man, that was it, man. That was really it. You said you were in and out of music and you got back into it. Like what kind of like had you going back and forth?
The fact that it's a extremely difficult business, and it's it's a lot of different things. Discouragement, frustration. But the truth is that I've only started working really, really hard at it to the point where for the past 3 years, let's say, where it's like I started understanding like, oh, because you didn't put in the time and the effort enough to make it back in the day. So when you're younger, you think like, oh, I'm just gonna put some stuff out and like I'm gonna blow up. Like that's that's how people see it, because we see like these celebrities and these stars kind of like come out of the woodwork and blow up overnight, and like, well, where did he come from, and like how did that happen? We all think it's like this easy sort of like lottery process, which is the furthest thing from the truth. And when I was younger, I didn't have the work ethic to pull it off. And then as I grew older, it's like that the understanding and the frustrations and the disappointments kind of went away, and realized like, oh no, it was all on me. So it was like a question of accountability also. So there was like a different things there, different variants, but for the most part, it's like the reasons why I would get out of it is because I would burn out, because I would yeah, it's like after a while, like you make music, even after 20 years of making music, there's still a lot of insecurities. There's still a lot of like doubts. I can make a theme song and in my mind be like, yeah, this is pretty good, but when I send it to the client, like by the time I send it to them receiving it and them listening to it, that whole time is super anxiety filled. Like even if I know the song is great and I send it in, I still have like tons of doubts. So there's that also that weighs on you over time. It's just like, it's a bunch of like a mixture of like a lot of negative things. And it's just like when you're artistic, you just have like these demons that roll around in your mind, So after a while, I like those 2 times that I quit was like, all right, demons, go away. I need a break.
Hey man, look, hey, you produce some awesome work, and you shared it with me. I dig it. How do you handle the feedback? Because I see you on your social media. You make a lot of theme songs for a lot of independent wrestlers. How's that going?
It's going great. The wrestlers have been really cool so far. I think I'm 15 or 16 theme songs in 6 months. So it's getting a lot more prevalent in the past few weeks, past few months. It's starting to get there, and the feedback that I've gotten is so far like I'm 15 for 15. Like no bad ones yet.
Okay.
Everybody's been really supportive. I've gotten some very nice compliments from people, and it's getting my name out there a lot. I think if the quality wasn't as there as it is, my name wouldn't be spreading as quickly as it is probably. But yeah, after 20 years, I hope that I'm getting good at this stuff.
Hey, that's what's up. You making progress, man. Keep going.
Yeah.
You've been a music producer for a long time. What was it that really got you to like go towards wrestling besides, your love for it as a young,
When I was younger, for sure, I was obsessed with wrestling growing up. Like my first, like until like I was like 20 years old, I fell out of wrestling and around the ruthless aggression era. I didn't really follow that in my 20s. I kind of like stopped watching wrestling for I'd say a good decade almost. I got back into it in my late 20s. And it was an opportunity for me to make music that I wouldn't be able to make a potential career out of in any other context, really, because it's some of it is heavier music, it's rock based, it's metal, a lot of that stuff, and it's not like a construction of a song that's like a mainstream radio song. It's really specific to one thing, and it kind of lends itself to composing in a way, because you're composing for a specific theme, composing for a specific vibe. So I see like the entrance theme thing is like the wrestler is kind of its own movie, and you're scoring the main theme song for that movie of what that character represents, right? So I had like film composer in the back of my mind all the time. I had video game composer when I was a kid. The thing that made me pay attention to music for the first time was Final Fantasy VII, the soundtrack of that game. Nobuo Uematsu, the composer of the Final Fantasy games, was like, music is really cool. And I noticed that when I was like, it was 7 or 8 years old, I got like my first taste of like, oh, music means something to me. And yeah, so ever since then, like to me, like entrance themes, music composing, video game composing, all that stuff is very similar. because you're composing for a specific purpose to enhance another person that's trying to do an artistic thing, let's say. So yeah, it's a very unique and special thing, and I tell people that, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about, because nobody does this. But yeah, it's a very specific niche thing, and that's why I think I'm getting some success in it, because so little people are doing it in the business itself.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Before I move on, yeah, do anyone tell you that you look similar to Kevin Owens?
Oh, if you're calling me fat, I don't know how I
No.
No. Well, it makes sense, because he's a Quebecer too. Like we're literally, like, he grew up, I think, 2 hours away from me, so he just has like that Quebecer look, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, the thing is, like, yeah, like, I love Kevin Owens, by the way. Like he's one of my favorites for sure. And it's also obviously because I'm biased towards the Quebecer thing, but he is like really amazing. Like he's probably like, he's one of the better promos in like the last decade in wrestling. Like for me, him and MJF are like the top two promos there for sure. I like I like a good heel usually.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I've gotten that before. I actually, I should say, on my Facebook, I have a picture of me dressed up as Kevin Owens for Halloween. Okay. So I can send you that picture if you want.
Hey,
yeah.
I just thought I'd say that. Yeah, I know he's from Canada also, and I was just like, man, let's like
he grew up 2 hours away from here, so it's like we're probably drinking the same water.
Man, you said of course you came back into wrestling in your late 20s. What got you back into it?
If I'm going to be completely honest, when I was getting out of Montreal, I was burnt out, and then I moved back home here. Montreal's 2 hours away from here. It's like pretty much one of the only big cities from around the suburbs that I'm at. My realization was that I was actually trying too hard to be cool when I was in Montreal, and it was like I was trying to be something that I wasn't necessarily, if that's the case. And then I had given up everything that I liked as a teenager in my 20s when I was in Montreal, and I was trying to be like a serious composer, serious producer, blah blah blah. And when I moved back here, I realized leaving everything that you like behind is really not a good idea. So I learned that the hard way, and I moved back here, and then I just started organically going back to the things that I started loving as a kid, like comedy, music, video games. Like I had to stop all of that stuff in my early 20s, and I just naturally, organically gravitated back towards the things that used to do it for me, just because it was like a sort of like reassessing who I was and going back inside me, like, no, like you like those things, like try to not, So I went. It was that's really what it was. It was like an existential thing.
Okay.
Like it's probably a little more intense and deeper than you were anticipating as a question, as an answer. But yeah, there was like definitely a thing where it's like, all right, I just naturally. The year that I came back into wrestling was, I think it was like WrestleMania, the John Cena versus The Rock.
The first one?
The second time.
The second one, WrestleMania 29.
Yeah, WrestleMania 21. That was the one. I got back, and like it wasn't, if I remember, it wasn't a very good WrestleMania, and I was like, I don't know if I want to get back into it. But then the next year 30 happened with Daniel Bryan. I was like, okay, well, that's pretty great there. So yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Of course, that WrestleMania wasn't all that great at all.
No.
The next night on Raw though was, man, it was off the chain though. It was really off the chain. You mentioned you're into comedy. You're a comedian also. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, that's my little dark secret. Comedy has always been around. Comedy and music to me are very similar. Not to get too pretentious about it, but like there's a lot of parallels, like in comedy, music, and most musicians love comedians, and most comedians love musicians. And I think they're like very, very closely related. Comedy is about timing, phrasing, how you choose to say things, how you enunciate the words you choose. It's very artistic, like music. And all the same words that apply to comedy apply to music, like the technical terms. So When I was a kid, I was like, I was really into. There was like this Canadian show called Kids in the Hall. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. That was the one that got started me in comedy, and then I went on to like, I was, earliest like the Chappelle Show when I was a teenager was a huge part of like my just developing my comedy thing, and then it just stuck with me, and I did stand up for a while. I did about 40 stand up shows. In my 20s, I tried that out for a while. Stand-up wasn't really my thing. I did a lot of sketch comedy videos with friends ever since I was a teenager. Then I went to film school, and then that carried on like part-time. I was still doing comedy stuff. I was doing recently. I was doing in the past year or two. I was doing a lot of TikTok because I heard that TikTok is very important for like organic growth and networking and all that stuff. So I was doing a lot of videos for TikTok, trying to go an audience on there, but then I got banned, so I kind of stopped because my comedy is a little more intense. It's like a little fringier kind of comedy that I like. Like I like like I don't know if you're aware, like Bill Hicks, Rodney Dangerfield, Mitch Hedberg, Richard Pryor. Like I like real guys that do like the darker side of things. It's still like I like to use comedy as a promotional tool instead of like as a music producer. It's hard to promote your stuff because you have to promote it through whatever you're creating, but I'm trying to find ways to like incorporate comedy into my promotion of things because different approach, different aesthetic, it attracts different kinds of people. So yeah.
That's really cool, man. That's really, really cool. Hey, I like that.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna move on here, you guys. On Talk Pro Wrestling, we got a question for you. Because you reached out to me, man, and I've been podcasting for about a month, going on a year in 3 months. And the feedback is wonderful, and I love doing it and just meeting people. Like I said in the beginning of the podcast, all my listeners all across the world, and just meeting different people all across the world. And you're from Quebec, Canada. I've never been to Canada. I would love to go to Canada though. But what made you want to be a guest on the podcast?
Well, actually, like I said earlier, I was kind of nervous at first because you're my very first interview / podcast experience, and I know that podcasting is very huge nowadays, and it's mostly to expand my network, pretty much. I'm actively contacting a bunch of people to see if I can get on as a guest in their podcast, but it's always like I'm sticking to the wrestling theme of things, and you had a wrestling / sports sort of like a hodgepodge podcast going on, so I figured why not give it a shot. And actually I contacted you because I thought you were involved in like the wrestling business, so I contacted you as a producer first, but then you're like, hey, I like your stuff, why don't you come on the podcast? So yeah, it was actually like you threw it at me, so I was pretty grateful for that. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Oh, hey, man, that's cool, man. But no, I'm not in the wrestling business. Hopefully, one day, I try. Man,
I'm trying to get there too.
Yeah, we keep working at it, man. We're gonna get there, man. We really gonna get there. Like I mentioned, you're from Canada, though, and of course you grew up watching wrestling. How was the Montreal screw job? Because it seems like I
wasn't there, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, but me just asking more so your opinions more so on it though.
Everyone has something to say, a story to tell. We make it easy to share yours. So let's talk.
Regardless of your podcast setup, hit record. And from there, whether your podcast reaches 10 people or 10 million, we can help you get heard wherever listeners are.
And who knows, maybe even quit your day job.
But no matter who hears you, it's about connecting and sharing something from your perspective.
It's about having a voice and using it without anything standing in your way. Say it all with Anchor.
Well, I mean, the first thing, was it a work? I don't believe it was a work. No, I can't. Even if a Scott Hall says that, I don't care. I don't care if he was there. I don't. No, like, yeah, it was well, I'm trying to think that was in '97. So I was 12 years old at the time. It happened 2 hours away from me. Survivor Series 97, right? Yeah. Okay. So I was I don't remember if I watched it on pay-per-view live because when I was a kid we had a black box in my home. Remember black boxes?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
So yeah, sorry to Vince McMahon if you're listening. But yeah, no, it's like yeah, we had a black box, and I think I started watching the pay-per-views not long after that one. So I don't remember seeing the screw job happen live. Mm-hmm. Is it a work? No, I don't think it is. Was it heartbreaking because it was a Bret Hart Canadian type of thing? I guess so, because I think I was too young. I don't remember exactly the feelings about it, but I don't know. It might be a controversial thing that I'm about to say. I don't know. But as you grow older and then you learn how, like, you know, backstage stuff works, and, you know, how the wrestling world works in general. Well, like, as much as you can learn from being an outsider, you know, like, I don't pretend to be in the know and, like, knowing what's going on. But, and this is going to sound cold, but if you see it from Vince McMahon's perspective, Bret Hart was told, like, you need to do a job, and he refused. And he had in his mind that he was sort of like this hero. He's like, I can't go down on my shield in Canada. Like, you can't do that. Although any wrestler will tell you, if you're on your way out, you go out on your back. That's just like wrestling etiquette, right? Mm-hmm. So as you grow older, and then you find out more about, like, you know, that situation. Of course, everybody that's like the ref, Earl Hebner, Shawn Michaels, apparently Triple H was like the orchestrator behind it, all that stuff. And it was Vince McMahon protecting his business. Like, that's what it was, because he had a worker that just got in over his head and being like, we want you to do a specific thing, but you're refusing. Therefore, we don't know what to do, so we have no choice. Like, I get it from a business point of view. At the same time, it sucks because he was a loyal worker, Bret Hart, Canadian guy, all that stuff. So when you were younger, maybe more emotional, didn't understand much about what was going on. But as you grow up and you look at it, you're like, I kind of get it. He was protecting his assets. He didn't want the champ to show up on Nitro with the belt. Like, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
He was like put in a corner, but at the same time, like, I don't know, they could have figured somebody else out. But at the same time, it started the Mr. McMahon character as a heel. Like, that was the start. So he made how many millions from that situation? You know, It's like they all got promo from that situation, even if it was a work or not. Like, bad stuff happened, but at the same time, it was the catalyst for, like, the most incredible time in wrestling history. So was it really a bad thing? I don't know, you know?
No, I mean, looking back at it, though, I mean, I don't really think it was a bad thing. Of course, I know you wasn't there. Just asking, you know, your opinions on it, because I came into wrestling 2 years later after that. And of course, you know, growing up and just, you know, going back and watching old school wrestling clips and everything, and also seeing the Dark Side of the Ring on it, and, you know, everything. Of course,
that was that Dark Side of the Ring series is amazing.
Yes,
it's really amazing.
Yes.
And
just, you know, like Vince McMahon, of course, was protecting his business, and you know, Bret Hart didn't want to, you know, go out. You know, he didn't want to lose in his hometown to Shawn Michaels, who he didn't have respect.
You could say Bret Hart was being a mark.
Yeah, he was. You know, I mean, we seen the stuff Shawn Michaels did back in the days, and you know, he didn't like him and stuff. But you know, hey.
But at the same time, like, Shawn Michaels was my favorite wrestler growing up, but he was clearly, like, he was a huge piece of shit. So it's like,
basically, more so the question is, how do you feel about Shawn Michaels, I guess?
I love Shawn Michaels. He's probably one of the best wrestlers ever. Like, watching him in the ring is like watching, like, you know how Bruce Lee talks about be water? Like, Shawn Michaels is the personification of a wrestler being water in the ring. Like, he was a true artist. Like, Shawn Michaels is like, it's like his, like, whole being was made for wrestling. Like, nowadays, Shawn Michaels, he's not, I can't say that he fell from grace, because he's not, like, out of control or on drugs, or, like, he seems just fine. I know that when I was a kid, Shawn Michaels, I couldn't miss a single thing that Shawn Michaels did. Like, he was my guy. Like, I loved him. But then in what was it, 90, 97, 98, the 97, the WrestleMania with Stone Cold. 14 with Tyson. With Tyson. That was the last match I saw of him because he was supposed to be pretty much retired with back surgery, and he was gone, right? So then, like at that moment, it kind of like something flipped with me. I'm like, oh my god, like Shawn Michaels is gone. I can't believe it. But then early 2000, he came back, I think, and then had a run. And then I didn't catch any of that run. And then that's when I realized, like, oh, I don't think I care about Shawn Michaels anymore. I didn't catch any of that. I know he did some good stuff with the Taker, WrestleMania, and all that stuff. Like he did some really classic stuff there. I saw some of his classic stuff after, like on his second run there. But I didn't follow it. Like I wasn't obsessed with it. Also, I grew older and I had different interests. But yeah, he wasn't the guy. He wasn't like the mythical figure that I had grown up with. And but yeah, and like definitely, like Shawn and Brett at the time were the two best wrestlers in the world, and they were having some of the best matches, like that the Iron Man match at WrestleMania and all that stuff. Like that's a classic. So yeah, I have a lot of respect for Shawn Michaels as a wrestler for sure.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So in actuality, so your last match to see Shawn Michaels was actually the one with him and Stone Cold and Tyson.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Wow. That's
kind of because I thought it was over. I thought it was done. Like that was the story. It's like, oh, I know Shawn Michaels needs back surgery. He's pretty much done. And that was like the end of Shawn Michaels was the start of Stone Cold. So he kind of passed the torch on that there, and I thought he was done. But yeah, that WrestleMania 14 match, I still remember that one. That was a cool time.
Have you ever went back to check out the match when he returned to take on Triple H at SummerSlam in 2002?
No. Oh, was that the one with he was wearing jeans?
Yes.
No, I did see that one. I did see that, and I thought he was doing some pretty cool stuff for a guy that was supposed to be done.
Hey, that's cool, man. What's your thoughts on the wrestling business? As today, I know you don't really, keep up with it, but what's your thoughts on it as a whole today?
I try to keep up with it as much as I can. It's harder nowadays with just life gets in the way there, and the more clients I get, the more. When I start working on a piece or on a song, like I get consumed with it and nothing else exists for the time that I'm making it. So I just it's not that I don't actively want to watch it, is I literally just pass by it and I'm working on stuff and I don't even think about it. Nowadays, like AEW obviously is great. It's a great addition. Now people have wrestlers have leverage again, like that they haven't had probably since the Attitude Era of WCW. If somebody was like, I want my release, well, now they have somebody else to go to and somebody who's keeping up in the ratings with WWE. So yeah, it's good for that. It's good for the business. Competition's always good. I don't know if WWE is treating them as competition though, because they don't seem like they care about them all that much. Sort of. I know that they changed the NXT day. NXT is not going to be going head to head with AEW. That was. Because I don't think WWE wants to go to war with anybody nowadays. I just think they want as many eyeballs as they can, and I think they figure with NXT, well, if we just move dates, we'll get more eyeballs. And also they realize like they probably can't beat AEW. Like the main AEW show is, I'm not saying NXT is bad in any way. Like some guys in NXT are great, like Adam Cole and all that stuff. Like I love like Finn Balor's down there now, I think, and Finn Balor, who's like the what a shame of what they did to Finn Balor on the main roster. I feel like Finn Balor had one of the best themes of nowadays, one of the best looks of nowadays. Not the best talker. That's probably what was holding him back. But they had a gold mine in Finn Balor, but then they kind of dropped him. When he had like that, when he won the Universal title and then he dropped it. Yeah, I think that was his downfall. Like Vince probably saw him differently after that. But yeah, I don't keep up with WWE as much. I try to keep up with AEW. AEW is a little more interesting for me. Like I saw the last pay-per-view with the barbed wire match. That was a shit show. Like I saw that.
Sure was.
Yeah. That was hilarious. I watched it alone. I was laughing a lot at the end.
Yeah.
Good on them for trying that, because it hadn't been done on national TV ever. Like, I don't know, like maybe since ECW. But yeah, like the ending, they kind of scrapped that. But anyways, like all in all, I feel like what's missing from wrestling is improvisation. And that's the one thing that's like is holding wrestling back. Is that 20 years ago and 20 years ago and beyond, before all this, wrestlers were, they would just go on and do their own promos. They would be given talking points and Larry, you got to get to this point. And then they would figure out as artists how to get there. And it's like over time that would develop their skills and like talking and character development and all the story arcs. And like it was their responsibility to make sure that those things happened in a compelling way. And I feel like once you've taken that out of the equation for wrestlers, that kills a lot of what wrestling is about. And that's why wrestling nowadays is generally less compelling than it used to be. At least that's my point of view. And also, I don't know, I'm older, growing older. So maybe I'm like a slightly more like, I have a more analytical point of view towards it. Like everything that I do and everything that I watch, it's like I'm analyzing. So when you're younger, you can just enjoy it. And I feel the dirt sheets also is another thing that ruined wrestling.
Yeah.
Like the whole taking the mystique and the fun and the mystery out of wrestling. When we were younger, that didn't exist, and we were better off being on the outside looking in, because that's when wrestlers really thrived. Like when wrestlers could really make you believe with their own skills and their own personalities that they are indeed the person and the character that's talking to you right now, and like you didn't have to doubt them. They weren't acting; they were really that person. I don't know. Maybe we need to bring back cocaine in wrestling. I think that's what needs to happen.
It's so funny because my brother-in-law, man, just hit me up before the podcast, and I was like, man, I'm about to get ready, man, and do my wrestling podcast. And he was like, man, I don't know what made him, think of it or whatever. I can call him after this, but he was like, man, you should try to get Ernie Ladd on your podcast and get New Jack. And I said, New Jack.
Yeah.
I said, oh man, New Jack would be awesome, man.
Yeah.
Did you see the Dark Side of the Ring with New Jack and how New Jack was in, sniffing cocaine and just doing, wild stuff. Like New Jack would be hilarious. And, back in the days, that's what they did. And I think, with the dirt sheets, man, you just got, certain wrestling fans, or if you want to call them wrestling fans or whatever, they just want to be so behind the curtain so much, and it's just
it makes them feel like they're part of it.
Yeah,
that's what people want. They want to feel like they're part of something. And if they complain about something all the time and they're being negative, it's because like they're being, in their mind, they're being critical and analytical. Therefore, they understand everything so well and they're part of it. Therefore, they can criticize it. And I never got into that. Like it's just like, fundamentally wrestling has become it's fundamentally nowadays, mostly because of Vince McMahon, it's entertainment for children first, right? It's like that's what it's there for. And us, like our generation, as we grow older, of course we're gonna be less in tune with what's going on in wrestling, because the demographics, so AEW is bringing back that 18 to 35 kind of edgier demographic. But if you're looking at WWE's for kids. Like that's what it's there for, and it's like they're very open about that. It's like if you look at a character like the Fiend is not going to scare a 35-year-old man. It's going to scare like a 7-year-old boy. It's like that's what it's there for. But yeah. Anyways, like I don't want to sound like the old guy of like it's not what it used to be. It's like because that's so cliche. But it is not what it used to be.
You're right, man. I get what you're saying, man. I really do, man. And it seems like it's a cycle. Now I don't know when the cycle will comes where AEW starts to push a little bit more, which I think WWE got their eyes on AEW, and I think both do, because vice versa. AEW got a new show now. It's on Monday nights for those who don't want to watch Raw. That's 3 hours too long, and it's just a whole lot of stuff. And I do like the TV 14 rating with AEW, and once AEW starts saying shit on their TV, now you got WWE want to copy and do this. So they both paying attention to one another. It's best to have another company such as AEW on that level to for other guys to go to thrive. You mentioned when people get released, Andrade got released. Sitting back in catering, his career kind of like went down the hole after Zelina left, and the comments and everything like that. But I mean, it's crazy. I do remember when guys would go out there and just be really authentic. I don't know if you watch Young Rock, the Rock show.
I haven't seen it yet, but I heard it's pretty good.
Yeah, it is really good. I love his mom. I love his dad on the show. Really good. But the fact, he don't really, his father is, more so in the wrestling. They kind of like more so talking about him being in sports and just, blase or whatever. But, he did, The Rock will always, say and talk about how authentic it was, especially the days where Stone Cold and The Rock and guys like The Undertaker and Kane, will go out there, man, and just shoot straight from the hip, and it's not a piece of sheet or piece of paper
it's because those guys, they grew up in the old system where they had no choice but to get good at those things to get over, right? So and nowadays it's a completely different thing. It's not necessarily the promos that'll get you over. It's really like the acrobatics and like the athletic prowess and like the crazier things you do, the craziest spots you do. And I think that, Stone Cold used to say all the time, and like you could apply that to being a comedian or an actor or anything, really. It's like, you just run your mouth. Run your mouth is what's going to get you money. It's like, the more you run your mouth, the more they're going to connect with you and identify and like be able to go like, oh, okay, his character is that. There's guys in wrestling that's like, you don't know what their characters are. It's like, I think that's like the downfall to a lot of guys. Like, say like a guy, I hate to pick on him because everybody picks on him, Cesaro. Cesaro is like an amazing freak athlete. Mm-hmm. But what is Cesaro? I don't know what Cesaro is. It's like, if I follow him on social media, Cesaro is a guy that loves coffee. Wow, it's like, what? That's not a character for wrestling.
Exactly.
It's like that. Like, they don't have those personalities, and back then, and not all the wrestlers are like this, obviously. Like,
and I think social media is another thing that killed it too. We weren't able to follow The Rock or Stone Cold or those type of guys back in them days. So I mean, they in a sense, it seems like WWE wants to know. Kind of like want us to know that, hey, these guys are actually real persons and they have other lives, and
which sucks. Which sucks. I hate that. It's like wrestling. Actually, I was having a conversation with somebody. I was having a conversation with my hairdresser earlier, and she was a wrestling fan when she was younger, and we were talking about specifically that, like, how back in the day wrestling was like, when you were a wrestler, you were basically an outlaw. You were like basically a criminal. It's like being a wrestler was like doing blow and going to strip clubs. Like that was being a wrestler before. And I don't want to glorify that, obviously, because it's not a healthy way to live for mental health and all sorts of reasons. But there was like, they were really like, all the wrestlers back then were like straight out of the Wild West. It's like, you would not want to mess with any of those guys. And nowadays, when I it's like, I'm 6'2", 280. I'm bigger than most wrestlers, and I'm a composer, So it's like, there's this thing where it's like, there's believability, and that believability used to come from mystery, because you didn't know what was going on. You didn't know what was what. You didn't know, like, if somebody was going to throw a chair at you while you were at a show. Like, you didn't know what was going to happen. There's missing the chaos in wrestling. Like, and those guys used to live in the chaos, and then they brought that chaos to the ring. And that's what made it compelling. And that's what made it different than like TV shows or movies. Is that like, it was like real life mayhem, and you didn't know what was going to happen. And the last people that have done that properly were ECW. Like, that style in the mainstream died with ECW when ECW died, because they were the closest thing to having a mainstream chaos on a national show. And I think like AEW is a little too polished to be in. Like, they can do barbed wire matches and all that stuff, but they kept the ropes on for the barbed wire match because it's safe. It's like, it's not just replace the ropes with barbed wire. It's put the barbed wire on the ropes. That's like a metaphor for like that sort of safety side of wrestling nowadays. And I understand, like, you don't want these people to die in the ring. Like, I get it. There's two sides to the coins, but I miss the days where mystery was number one, and you would go to shows and you literally like would not even know if you're safe. It's like that's how it felt when I was a kid when I went to wrestling shows. And I'm talking about like, seeing wrestlers like Abdullah the Butcher with his fork, and like you've seen Abdullah the Butcher back in the day, I'm assuming, where he would just go around, and as soon as Abdullah the Butcher came out, the whole arena would go into like a semi riot. Just because of his presence. And it's like, because people thought that he was a real murderer. So it's like you don't have that anymore in wrestling, and it's probably some good, some bad, because it's entertainment for younger people too. A lot of kids like it, but I liked Abdullah the Butcher types when I was growing up at shows, and I've had Abdullah the Butcher right next to me at a live show with a fork, like stabbing somebody in the forehead with a fork, blood gushing everywhere, and it was heaven. so it was like, I remember that vividly, and it's the kind of stuff that you can't experience in wrestling anymore because it's just too crazy. But yeah, it's that vibe of like the wrestlers being outlaws, being like, you can feel like they're going town to town, like robbing you from your money, and like, leaving a trail of violence along the way. It's like that's how you used to see wrestlers. But anyways, I'm all for it, like with the concussions and all that stuff, that they slow down and they don't. Good on AEW for bringing blood back though, like blading. That's been missing. Blading is cool because it doesn't leave a permanent mark, and it's just like it flows for a while, and great. So that's fine. WWE should have blading too. Like UFC has blood naturally. Nobody complains, so why not wrestling? Like it doesn't make sense. But yeah,
I understand. I really do. That was one thing that I did miss about the wrestling, because the blood did go away, especially when you didn't have any other competition besides maybe I guess Impact, but AEW brought that back, and that's kind of cool. I mean, these guys going in there 30, 40 minutes, busting their ass, kicking ass, and you telling me not neither one of them bled?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense.
That's how you know that furthers the story. Like
that's how you would blow off an angle before. It's like you've been fighting and hating this person for months, and now you're going to go in the ring and have a technical grappling match with them. What the hell is that?
Exactly, man.
No, it's like you want to blow off the angle. It usually meant like everybody's going to bleed, and I think WWE screwed it up. I think the last match that blood was like that JBL Eddie Guerrero match. Remember that one?
Yes, I do.
Where it was just like blood everywhere. It was like the most blood I think I've ever seen in a wrestling match. I still remember that one, but that was compelling because like you felt it in your gut. Like you felt the violence in that match, and it was like it made you feel sick. I have like a thing for blood where it makes me faint. But anyway, so it's like when I see blood in wrestling matches, like it really gets you, like it's like a guttural feeling. It comes to get you from the bottom of your soul, and it's like, oh my god, this feels real. This feels dangerous. And like I felt that the Britt Baker Thunder Rosa match there. I saw that one because I saw the blood, and I'm like, all right, that's one I gotta watch there. And I feel like I don't know why, like a lot of people complained about that match. I thought it was great, and especially for if women can have those kinds of matches and doing better, like that match was better than the barbed wire match by far.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
By
so
far.
It's like if the women can get more hardcore than the men and show them up, like put the women in the main event if that's like leave them there, because that match was way better than anything I've seen lately. Of what do you think about Jon Moxley in general?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. Like everybody said, of course he gives off the Stone Cold vibe.
Yeah, he doesn't.
I like him. He's Jon Moxley now. Since he dropped the title, he's just he's with his buddy. Can't think of his name at the moment right now, but Eddie Kingston.
Yeah,
Eddie Kingston. Yeah, he's with him. But I actually like him. He was like last year's #1 wrestler or whatnot.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's cool. I just think he could do more, and
he could, and I still point back to that interview he had with Stone Cold there.
Yeah, man, yeah, that really made him mad. Yeah,
where Stone Cold just like fucking tore him a new asshole.
Yeah,
but he wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong. And it's like John Moxley didn't know how to, well, Ambrose back then, he didn't know how to react to him. Like you could tell he was really like put off and awkward. I was like, oh, Stone Cold's one of my idols telling me like, what are you doing, son? Like you need to do better. Like show me more, you know? And I totally 100% agree, because people compare him to Stone Cold. It's like, no, like people that do that, like you did not go through the Attitude Era when Stone Cold was in his prime, because that was like a different entity. Like Stone Cold was like a demigod back then, like in pop culture in general. John Moxley did not permeate into pop culture at all. Like he's not Stone Cold. Like he's not at that level. But even when he was Dean Ambrose, this is like Dean Ambrose, John Moxley back in the day. Like he was in CZW death matches, like all that kind of stuff. And I get that, but then they try to recreate like the lunatic. It's like this, like it's the forced lunatic character, I think, that's not like quite right for him. And I think that because he's such in a sanitized world of like the nowadays pro wrestling, that a character like that probably he would have went nuts 20 years ago. Like if he was like put in those like Attitude Era, like it put him in ECW, and he probably would have done a lot more. I think he's just like, he's a guy that's out of his time. Like he's not in the right time period in wrestling. That's why he can't bloom 100%. Because I think that guy's like, he's probably like out of his mind for real. Like he would have been like one of those like real like outlaw type wrestlers back in the 80s, like a Jake Roberts kind of guy. Like I would have seen him be like that. But nowadays, because of the kind of system that he's in, like even in AEW, he's good, but you can never look at John Moxley and go like, hey, like what's your favorite John Moxley match? Because there isn't one that sticks out per se. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, to me it's like when I saw like the Britt Baker and the Thunder Rosas doing the hardcore thing, and they did it 100 times better than John Moxley ever did, and he's supposed to be the deathmatch guy expert. That's when I question, like, is he for real, this guy? Like, I don't know. So, I don't know. But time will tell. But even when he was in the Shield, I was like, I feel like he's the least believable of all three. I always had like a thing where it's like, I don't believe this guy. And I don't know, I never understood why people put so much emphasis on him. Not that I want him to go away or like, but he's not, like, I would put a Kevin Owens in his position as Kevin Owens being more unhinged naturally than John Moxley, who's trying to pretend to be unhinged. Yeah, I don't know if you know what I'm saying. Like Kevin Owens to me comes off as more believable than John Moxley.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense, man.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Hey, yo, man. Hey, this has been fun, man. Squirty Leflow, man. I appreciate you joining me here on the 1130 podcast, Talk Pro Wrestling. Before you go, you got any future projects?
Still working on themes, trying to get new clients. Eventually, might start my own podcast too. If that happens, I'll have you on.
Hey, man.
And,
I'm all down.
Yeah, just like looking for clients, keeping that up, and hoping for the best. Trying to make these contacts, trying to get my name out there and see what happens.
Hey man, keep doing your thing. I love it, man, and your insight. I can't wait to have you back here on the podcast, man. It's absolutely fun, man, chatting with you and your knowledge about wrestling, man, because you get certain people who are the marks, and you get certain people who just know stuff about the business, and you got a great mind of wrestling that I like to talk more with. About wrestling with, man. But before you go, any shout outs, any questions for me, anything like to say?
Questions, no. I'm gonna shout out one guy because he's the one that gave me my first chance of making a theme. It's Big Trouble Ben Bishop, and I think he's gonna be one of the big things in the wrestling in the coming. Like he's 6'12", almost 7 feet. This guy's huge, and I'm gonna give him a shout out because he was the first one. When I was contacting people that just took a chance on me and got the ball rolling. So I'm going to shout out Ben Bishop on that one, and also my family for their support.
All right, man. Shout them out. Man, hey, it's crazy times we living in right now, but stay safe, man. Once again, thank you for joining me this week on the 1130 podcast. And yo, man, keep doing your thing.
Thanks a lot, man. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Yo, man, Squirty Leflow, man. Dope time chatting with you, man. This was a fun episode. This was a very, very fun, episode chatting with you, man, just about wrestling, man. Man, can't wait to have you back here on the podcast. Keep doing your thing as a composer, as a music guy, man. Just making wrestling theme songs, man, because Jim Johnston, man, was the guy. Them first 2 seconds, man, you knew who the hell that wrestler was, man. And we need some more people, out there to, create theme songs. We know AEW got generic ones, so maybe you could be the new, composer for AEW with some dope theme songs. Who knows, man, what the future holds, man. For real, you're getting into it. Keep doing your thing, man. I love it, man, because, yeah, we need some new theme songs in wrestling that really, catch us. But, it's been an awesome time chatting with you, Squirty Leflow, man. Stay safe and have a great day, you guys, man. Before I get on out of here, man, what a show. This was awesome. We had Fastlane this past Sunday, you guys, man. I'm going to get my thoughts on that real quick before I go, you guys. Fastlane this past Sunday, we seen Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair take on the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax was a cool matchup to start off the show. In my opinion, they kept hinting and saying that the only time we've seen the tag team champions go into WrestleMania and face one another was Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, and John Cena and Shawn Michaels. That I felt as though that they were going to pull this off with Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks. But I'm glad they didn't, though. And also, them teaming up and everything, like, I think the slap that Sasha Banks laid on Bianca Belair was everything that it needed to be and should have happened when Sasha Banks said, that's Sasha, but when Bianca said, man, I want to fight you at WrestleMania, and I think Sasha should have stopped her on Bucks. Like, I'm the boss, I'm the blueprint. Like, you can't touch me. You should have go over and face Asuka or something like that. But no, we gotta fake like we like one another. We gotta fake like we gonna team up and win the tag team titles. No, it ain't happen. But I'm loving it, man. Bianca Belair, Sasha Banks, full-fledged to WrestleMania. What else we seen? We seen Apollo Crews take on Big E. I'm loving this whole story. I'm loving the whole new Apollo, man. It is great, man. He's actually coming out and saying who he really is and putting the hurting on Big E, man. This match went on like it did a pretty DQ or whatnot. But they're gonna have the match most likely at WrestleMania. More matches are probably most likely to be scheduled or announced. I think that's the same. Announced tonight on SmackDown. So, man, it's going to be crazy, man. So, Apollo versus Big E. That's going to be great, man. I'm loving that. I'm really loving that. What else we seen on Fastlane? We seen Drew McIntyre and Sheamus tear the house down. But you know what, though? Just like my guy, Squirty Leflow was saying, man, the blood aspect that WWE, of course, takes out of it. And, of course, they trying to be on the safe side, and now they PG, and it's more for kids. But I felt as though that this match between Drew McIntyre and Sheamus, man, would have deeply needed blood. Like, the shit they was going through, 2 weeks ago on Raw? And they just had a hell of a match. Then they brawl, and now we get a Fastlane, and neither one of them bleed. But of course, they got scars on their back. Like, I mean, hey, I ain't the one that's going to complain, but I'm just saying that would have furthered the storyline more. But obviously, I guess they didn't want to further that even more. I guess that was just a brawl to go ahead in that. And hey, Drew McIntyre is on the road to WrestleMania to take on Bobby Lashley. In my eyes, I really don't see this being a huge matchup. I am proud of Bobby Lashley, though, to become the WWE champion. I just think Bobby Lashley should have a bigger opponent. They could have saved Sheamus and Drew to WrestleMania, but hey, I guess they wanted Drew in the main spotlight at a WrestleMania, man. So, hey, it's cool. It's cool. Another thing, man, we were seeing on the Fastlane. Matt Riddle took on Mustafa Ali. That was in the kickoff show, but it seems like no more retribution. I guess we can get a round of applause for that one right here. Yeah. But I mean, Fastlane was cool, man. We on the road to WrestleMania. Not only, man, did we see those awesome matches, we seen Alexa Bliss take on Randy Orton with the reemergence of The Fiend. And just like my man Squirty Leflow said, man, he's not scaring no 30-year-old man, though, but I mean, when I first saw The Fiend come up from out the ring this past Sunday, I'm like, okay, well, that's Kane and the Undertaker. That gotta be Kane and the Undertaker's son. That gotta be Kane. That's all I can think of in my mind. Like, that gotta be him. But man, like, now he's burnt, he's crisp. Like, I don't know, man. But of course, they're gonna take on each other at WrestleMania. The Fiend versus Randy Orton. Just the mind games is, man, it's something else. It's something else, man. So I'm more interested. And of course, the main event, you guys, the tribal chief Roman Reigns defeated Daniel Bryan. So it's going to be Edge and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. Man, WrestleMania is going down. We had a couple of matches that been announced for WrestleMania this past Monday on Monday Night Raw, such as Bad Bunny will take on The Miz. Well, The Miz It was a transitional champion, winning the WWE champion, and now he's facing Bad Bunny. So in Miz's eyes, hey man, I'm still winning. I'm taking on one of the top music guys in the world at WrestleMania. So hey, shout out to The Miz though, man. Shout out to The Miz. And speaking of shout outs, man, and WrestleMania, this past Wednesday, man, this past Wednesday, right before the 11:30 podcast main show streamed on EB Radio and on YouTube, WWE's The Bump, you guys, man, was awesome, you guys. Special guests, they had Kane and also The Undertaker. Yes, Kane was up there with The Undertaker, and Kane was announced that he will be next inductee into the 2021 WWE class of 2021 Hall of Fame. And The Undertaker gave him the news, man. So it's going to be awesome. We got Kane, and also the breaking news this week. The Great Khali, you guys, will be joining Molly Holly, and she will be joining Eric Bischoff, you guys, of the Hall of Fame, you guys. So it's going to be dope. The Hall of Fame will be celebrated in 2 weeks, you guys? Less than 2 weeks. So it's going to be dope, man. It's going to be dope. It's going to be right before TakeOver Stand and Deliver on that Tuesday. And from everybody who was going to be inducted last year because of the coronavirus, that did not happen, they're going to be also inducted this year. So it's going to be kind of like a super Hall of Fame. Batista has made note that he cannot be involved in this year's Hall of Fame because of previous obligations. So hey, man, Dave, we'll see you in the future. Yes, man, we'll see you in the future. But hey, you guys, man, this been a fun-ass episode, man. We got WrestleMania locked down. We got WrestleMania locked down. AJ Styles teaming up with Omos to take on the New Day. Really, though? WWE ain't got no damn tag team. They're going to have AJ and Omos, though. This is what AJ doing at Mania. He go from fighting the Boneyard match to most likely they're going to win the tag team championships. So it's kind of Omos' debut. And, so, hey, we see how it goes, man. We see how it goes. They're going to be live 2 nights this year. WrestleMania, Raymond James Stadium. Hey, they're damn near sold out. So I know a lot of people got them tickets, man. Go get them. Enjoy yourself. Stay fun and have fun, man. Stay safe. Have fun. Do all that good stuff. Do all that good stuff. Squirty Leflow, man. I appreciate you joining me this week on the 11:30 podcast. Talk Pro Wrestling, man. Dope show, man. Dope show. You guys, man, before I get on out of here, I'm so excited. This episode was fun. I'm so excited. Before I get on out of here, don't forget to follow the 11:30 podcast, you guys, on all social media platforms. Follow me on Twitter at Dre on Wheels. Follow me on Instagram at the 11:30 podcast. Like the 11:30 podcast on Facebook. Subscribe to the 11:30 podcast YouTube channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss an episode. So you don't miss an episode, man. And you won't miss the episode of the 11:30 podcast, main podcast, each and every Wednesday, streaming on YouTube at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and also streaming on EB Radio. Download the free EB Radio app, man, if you love music. And also, man, the 11:30 podcast, Talk Pro Wrestling. You know how we get down each and every Friday. Hit that follow button if you listen to me on Spotify, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star rating and review. I appreciate it so much. Trying to get the 1130 podcast up and out there even more, man. And if you would like to be a guest here on the podcast, email me. That's the1130podcast@gmail.com. The1130podcast@gmail.com. Or just email me or DM me on social media. You know how we get down. Let's work, man. Man, it's been an awesome show, man. Talk pro wrestling. Forward. Hope everybody, man, enjoys SmackDown tonight. You know, if you're listening to me after Friday, I hope everybody enjoyed SmackDown. Man, we on the road to WrestleMania, you guys, man. Yo, let's keep the ball rolling, man. I'm excited. Until next week, you guys. Yo, it's your man Dre, a.k.a. Dre on Wheels. And I'm out.